I know that the hospitality industry is really forgiving. So I kind of had what I call my Reese's peanut butter moment, where you put your chocolate in my peanut butter, you get your peanut butter in my chocolate. And I was like, why isn't there a way for people to get training in the skills that they need to get their foot in the door in this industry? Because we have over 1,000 people returning to Leon County every year from our state, federal, and county detention facilities. And that's over 1,000 people that need work. And our recidivism rate in Leon County is 26%. So 1 out of every 4 go back within 3 years. Nationally, it's 76%, 3 out of every 4. So it's insane. And you ask people why they end up going back, and it's because I couldn't find employment, and I go back to what I know. I go back to doing what I do to make money because I still have bills to pay. And that's where we end up getting caught up. So I started the program in 2017 after 2 years of planning, and we are getting ready to have our 37th cohort. And we've had over 100 graduates, and our recidivism rate over the 7 years amongst all of our graduates is less than 9%. So,
Wow, that must
yeah.
be a great that must be a great source of pride for you. That's incredible.
It is really. I do enjoy it. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Rebecca. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
I was deep in editing and just looked up and realized sorry. Completely sorry.
It's all good.
I did the same exact thing yesterday, Chris. I was fully consumed in the world of video editing and was late to a meeting, so totally get
I was
that.
fully consumed in a cheeseburger, so
Oh.
Yeah, Chris, we were just going through sort of the founding of REFire and inspiration behind it, and then she was just sharing some of the results, which is incredible.
Awesome. REFire, it's pretty awesome. I recently found out I think I was looking online, Rebecca, and found it just online, but then met Street Chef Trey, and he told me all about, or he mentioned you, and then I looked at REFire further, and I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And Mike and I, with what we're trying to do with the winning recipe and conversations and getting this in front of certain people, we figured you'd be a great person to
awesome.
give us insight into what people, especially aspiring culinary entrepreneurs and aspiring culinary professionals, would actually want to hear in a doc.
Yeah.
What could they get value from? So,
Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you for your time.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
So did Trey go through one of the cohorts then?
No, actually, I met Trey in 2013. I had a cafe inside of a state building for a brief time in the Northwood Center, here in Tyler. R.I.P. Northwood. And Trey applied for a position at the cafe I was opening, and I saw on his resume that he actually had worked for my ex-girlfriend at the senior living place. And so I called her and I was like, hey, I got this guy, DeAndre. And she's like, oh yeah, you need to hire him. He's awesome. He can lift heavy things and all the girls think he's cute. And I'm like, all right, done. So.
Go! That's perfect.
So he started working for me when I had Marge's in 2013. And anybody who worked at Marge's could pick up shifts at Street Chefs and, vice versa. It was kind of like a big blended family. And he started working on the truck when we were doing Food Truck Thursday, which was a big multi-food truck event that we used to do pre-COVID. And, one day we were working at catering, and I said, man, I'm going to sell this thing. Tired. And he said, how much can you sell it for? And I was like, I don't know. And I said a number, and I said, why, you want to buy it? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, that's not how much I'd sell it to you for. And I said, talk to your wife. And so he talked to his wife, and I talked to my wife, and we all came to an agreement, and I handed him the keys, and that was February 22. So yeah, going on 2 years now. And he kept everything, the name, and the menu and everything. And the truck, her name is Stella, and that was one of my grandmother's names. And and he kept the Stella name on the truck, which made me feel, really proud. So, but he's doing great. He's working it full time, and he's doing great. He's like got the truck wrapped, and she looks pretty, and he's out all over in the community. It's awesome. It's so wonderful to see something that I worked so hard on to like breathe life into now grow in another direction. It's like it's the best.
Yeah, and that's so cool that he kept the name Stella. I met Stella through I was just working a local gig and walked up and saw Trey in there and was like, I think I asked for fries or something. But he just told me about the whole, like, certain things about running the food truck and being an entrepreneur. There's just so many overhead costs and like certain things that you just don't think about outside of the food, that everybody's like, oh, food and like culinary expertise and all that. So yeah, that's really cool to hear the depth of like how you handed off the truck to
Trey. Yeah,
he's kind of running along with it. That's ultimately with Mike and I's story. Mike, did you share what the doc covers and stuff?
We haven't really gotten into that yet. No.
Yeah, no.
Okay. I would love to give a quick rundown of it. So the winning recipe, it's a short doc that's around, we're hoping to get to 30 minutes, but it highlights the journey of a local chef owner, Leon Brunson, who's in Tallahassee, and it highlights his journey from acquiring the restaurant up to opening it. And pretty much the ins and outs, not all the ins and outs, but the mentality and some of the things that it takes that people just have no clue goes into being a chef owner and running a business such as that. So we're trying to highlight the psychological aspects of it, the logistical and practical aspects of it, and hopefully it has value within the right target audience. We're targeting aspiring chef owners to just show them this is what this looks like, and these are things you're trying to think of. So that's what the winning recipe, this documentary is. But we're also trying to encompass the documentary as just a tool within a bigger conversation of insight into culinary entrepreneurial ventures and allowing people within the space to communicate and converse with one another about those hardships and just being transparent about it. So yeah,
that's really cool. I think if somebody had shown me a documentary about all of the things that it takes to actually be successful and to run a successful food business, I don't know that I would have taken the leap, because to me it was like I ended up spending, I was like, I want to be creative and I want to cook all this good food, all the things that people think, everybody I've ever talked to that wants, like, I'm going to open a food truck, they were like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this and do that. And I spent more of my time doing the stuff that I had no desire to do, like QuickBooks and figuring out my marketing budget and figuring out like all of the back end stuff, the paperwork, all of that stuff. I spent so much time doing all that because in the beginning I couldn't afford to like outsource that, so I had to kind of learn what to do. And I spent the longer I owned the business, the more successful the business got, the less and less time I was actually practicing my craft, actually like cooking and doing like the day-to-day activities. And that's kind of a good, it's a catch-22. It's like, it's a great thing because your business is getting so big that you have to hire people and you need, you're expanding and growing, but it's also, you get pulled away, from doing the thing that you really love to do. And that, it kind of burns you out. Well, for me, at least it did. It burned me out, after 11 years of having the truck. And being an entrepreneur, though, it's kind of like getting a tattoo. Once you get one, you're thinking about your next one. It's like, I opened the truck. I started the Food Truck Association, which was a great collaborative effort when all of us were first starting out in like 2011, 2012. So we could all like get together monthly and talk about, where things were going well and where things weren't, and what we could do to get more spaces where we could park and things like that. And then after the Food Truck Association was going for a while, then I started the cafe in Northwood Center, and then after that was going for a little while, then I started REFire, and then I got tired, boss. By 2020, by the time the pandemic hit, it was like, the cafe closed. It was just REFire and Street Chefs, and it was like juggling chainsaws, and it's great and fun, but I never had a day off. And there was always a question that had to be answered. There was always something I had to do. No matter how much I delegated, no matter how much I empowered my people to do stuff, it was always, hey, the water pump's not working, that it's, hey, I think there's a leak in the gas line to the fryer. Okay.
Oh, so we're gonna blow up today.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god.
Like,
see that from Mike and I from editing, just we've captured footage of this process of the Leon in his restaurant at Lake Ella throughout the past 2.5 years, but some of the things we've captured are not even related to, like, it's great because it's not related to food. It's the transparent look at, if you have a building, the building needs plumbing, it needs air conditioning, it needs
has to be ADA accessible. And I used to rent one of those cottages when I first opened, and those cottages are old, and the people who own them do not want you making a lot of big changes to them. And he got lucky. I mean, he got that place from Keith. Keith had done quite a bit, but there was still more that needed to be done, to get it to where it is today. And it's such a niche area, and the parking isn't great, and it's there's so many positives about that, about being in Midtown and being at the lake and everything, but there's so many negatives too that it's like, and everything post-COVID has just been so different, from like 2022 on. It's just been like 2020 to 2022 is kind of me. It's just like a wash. Those 2 years like just didn't even really exist. As it was so hard to operate and so hard to pivot from, especially with a food truck. It was so hard to pivot to a no contact model or ghost kitchen model or anything. That's what everybody was doing. And it got expensive, and now, food is so expensive and everything. It's just, and all the things you don't think about, how many different permits you have to have, how many licenses you have to have, all the different, certifications, everything, and.
Quick question. So how do you motivate the target audience we're talking about while still being realistic with all the chainsaws they're about to juggle? Which, by the way, that was such a brilliant line. I was like, I had to hold myself back from like laughing out loud because I was like imagining that as like copy. And I was like, that's so good. It
is the most accurate depiction of running a business, in my opinion. I think, I had 20 years experience in the restaurant industry when I opened the truck. And I was really methodical in my education. And, I went to culinary school, but that's not the education I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the jobs that I had leading up to me feeling secure enough to start my own business. I was very methodical. I wanted to learn on somebody else's dime. Like how to read a P&L and what EBITDA was and what are my controllables and things like that. All the stuff that has very little to do with cooking. And then when I get to that point where I'm trying to pull people in and I'm trying to, say, hey, come try my food truck, come try our food. What's different? You have to have the hook. You have to have the thing that makes people want to come and see. But you also have to deal with people going, well, I'm not going to pay, $12 for a sandwich off of a truck. and how am I supposed to make money, and keep my food costs low and still serve quality food while getting people to come and eat food off of a truck. And when we opened in 2011, it was kind of the beginning of the boom in Tallahassee. Food trucks have been around for forever. West Coast had been going for forever, and it just, takes a minute to get over here. Austin had a big food truck scene. Atlanta was starting to come with a big food truck scene. But people were thinking, oh, it's still going to be like fast food. It's still going to be like, cheap crap in a sack. And I put a lot of thought into crafting my menu. And I didn't want to just serve things that everybody else serves. So it's like our signature sandwich was the Not Your Mama's Grilled Cheese. 4 different cheeses, locally sourced bread, fresh basil, fresh tomato, grilled to melty perfection. And then, we built off that. And once I got people hooked on the food, that's when we really started to build up the menu from there. We started out really simple with 4 core menu items, and as we evolved, it just kind of we went with what worked and added to it. So by the time I sold the truck, our main menu had 14 items on it, but really it was only like 5 items, because it was of like 4 variations of one thing and 3 variations of another thing, and then 1 or 2 standalone things. But that was another thing I had to learn. Like, when you're in a corporate restaurant, like I worked in corporate restaurants for forever, worked in catering companies for forever. You have like all this space and all this room to like, oh, I can go to the back, or I can go to the freezer. I was on a truck that was 22 feet long from tip to tail and barely 7 feet wide, with all that equipment and everything. It's kind of suck your gut in to slide or behind. And there was no, when you ran out, you ran out. So we had to learn how to par and how to prep, because you don't want to sell out in the middle of the night. You don't want to lose the money, but you also don't want to have a ton of waste. So there's so many variables and so many things you have to think about, and that you just can't always know. And then if you change something and people are like, what did you do? Well, you have to find that balance. I can't change the brand of Munster cheese I'm buying because the other brand I bought was cheaper, but it was more oily and didn't melt right. And even though I was saving $1, people aren't buying the sandwiches anymore. So, it's a lot of juggling chainsaws. It's a lot of figuring out what works and what doesn't, and pivoting as quickly as you possibly can. I hope that answered something.
No, that definitely answered something. It led, for me personally, to another thought of, like, as you were saying, there were things that you just learned through experience that you couldn't learn in culinary school.
Oh, yeah.
Just especially business-related things. With what you just said, that seemed like there's so much to think about. Just all different types of details. What would you say is if you had a hierarchy of this is really important to know that you may not know, does anything come to mind in terms of like running the food trucks or marges or anything like that you just, it's a really important thing that just isn't talked about or known?
It's the back end stuff. It's the numbers. It's all a numbers game. The margins are so thin, and you don't understand. When you go into a sit-down restaurant and pay $45 for a steak, you're not paying $45 for a steak. You're paying probably $8 for the steak, and then, the insurance, the licensing, the overhead, all of the other things that you don't think about. And something I learned really quickly was to know where my strengths were and know who I had to pay. I am a really good cook. I can blow your socks off with an awesome grilled cheese sandwich. I am not a good bookkeeper. Not my forte. So find a way to pay somebody to do that, because the last thing you want to do is mess up your sales tax or mess up your 941s, the IRS, and like all. I didn't go to school for that. Nobody teaches you about that. That was one of the things we did in the Food Truck Association, was like talked to other food truck owners about that, and they were like, "Well, I'm just gonna take cash, and what I report is what I report, and there's no trail." And I'm like, Al Capone killed a whole lot of people. You know what they put him in prison for? Tax evasion. Uncle Sam's gonna get his. It's just, that's the way it is. But that's, there was such a small part of that in culinary school. Like, we had one 4-week class on management and supervision that touched on food cost and percentages and things, like just barely touched on it. And that was the thing that killed more food trucks than I could stand to see, to be honest. It's because you get so wrapped up in that I'm going to make the best whatever it is that I'm cooking. But you have to take care of that other stuff. And if you're going to be the owner and the operator, you're working 2 jobs. So you're working however many hours a week out on your truck, out in your restaurant, out in your catering business, out in wherever. And then you're working another set hours of the week, booking the events, doing the paperwork, doing the taxes, so if you're not good at that, hire somebody to do that part. Because you can't hire somebody. It's easier to hire a bookkeeper than it is to hire somebody to cook, because they're not always going to put the same level of passion and pride in what they're making. I got lucky. I found good guys to work on my truck for years, and from the onset, my first sous chef, she was 16 and was still in high school, but I could not have done Street Chefs without Haley. I couldn't have done everything I did without Haley and Max and Brandon and Andrew and Andy and Trey, and like the guys who came through and worked on the truck and became a part of Street Chefs, because I thought that was really important. Like, what do you want to put on the menu this week? You want to run a special? Because if you empower somebody that's working for you, then they have a vested interest. We had secret menu items. That if you were a roadie, you followed the truck and you knew about our secret menu items, you could order them, and if we had everything to make it, we'd make it for you. And one was called the Dirty Skank. And my father-in-law begged me to change the name of it so I could put it on the menu. But it was that base, Not Your Mama's grilled cheese sandwich, right? The 4 cheeses, basil, tomato, with a 1/4-pound beef and pork burger, pesto sauce, macaroni and cheese, and bacon. And it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. And one of my kids came up with it. One of my guys came up with it, and so it became a secret menu item. You have to learn how to lead people. You have to learn how to work with people, how to be on the team and a part of the team, but in charge of the team all at the same time. So there's that familiarity with the people you're working with, where it's like, because it's a kitchen at the end of the day. We're gonna tell dirty jokes and make fun of each other. And if you're in a kitchen and you don't hear "that's what she said" at least twice in your shift, man, I just don't know what's going on. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you're still the boss, and you have to, like, hey, I saw your portions weren't right, hey, don't serve something you wouldn't serve to the person you're dating, like, make sure that there's that level of respect with that familiarity too, and that you can't. It's really hard to teach somebody to lead like that, especially in culinary school. So I went to culinary school later. Like, I'd already been in the kitchen for 10 years when I went to culinary school. Just about, like, 9 years when I went to culinary school. I was 30 when I went. And I'd been in and out of kitchens for almost a decade. And all the kids that were coming in, in school with me were like 17, 18 years old, and they thought they were going to graduate and become the next big Food Network star. Like, that was just, their thing. And we started with 27 kids in my class. There were 4 of us when we graduated. Because it's not for everybody. It's hot and it's hard, and you have to take instruction before you can give instruction. And you have to say yes, chef, before it can be said to you. And just because you graduate from culinary school, it doesn't make you a chef. You have a credential, you can cook, you have a degree. But when you graduate from medical school, they don't call you doctor just yet. You're still a resident. You still have to learn. You still have to go through all the trials and tribulations. So there's just so much that you can't teach in culinary school, and I think that it's a great place if you want a college degree to go. But if you want to really learn how to cook, go work in the restaurants. Go work in a kitchen. Do the work. That's how you'll learn it. That's the best thing to do. Because then you're getting paid for it too, and you'll know really quick if you want to do it or not. And like I said, I had all these, like, I didn't want to open my own business until I'd been a general manager, and I was a general manager of a quick service restaurant. I made GM of the year, over 181 units nationwide, and a year and a half later, I put in my notice and opened the truck. It was like, okay, I can see how all this connects now, and I think I can do it.
That's one incredibly said about the team aspect. That's to be able to lead, you have to kind of be one with the pack, and as well as understand all the friction and all the processes, and you have to go through it before you can lead people through it yourself. And that, what you just said about the general manager position and how that experience translated to the management of the food truck and just all of that was like, that's just indicative of knowledge you don't learn from.
Yeah.
You learn from doing. And
yeah.
So that was beautifully put. And the team part with the menu and having people a part of the menu, it's like you start a business with the intention of it being you, and kind of maybe there's another person involved, but as it grows, it becomes less centered around you, centered around the team and what you're providing. So that's something you can't really learn through words. I would imagine it's something you just learn from being within it and understanding all the detail and intricacy of the everyday in the restaurant business and hospitality business. So that was great. So yeah, Michael, did you have anything? Or
I do. I mean, I could ask you 1,000 questions right now, but
I got time.
same.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. This is random, but which influence in your life led to you just wielding these like incredible phrases? So I love just like the language that you use in general. Is it like, can you pinpoint that, or is it just a collection of influences over your life?
I would just have to say, my wife always says, I have lived many lives in my life, because I've been clean and sober for 27 years. So there's before sober and there's sober, and there's, when I was in the military and after, and there's, like when I worked in retail, when I worked in the kitchen, and it's just like all of these different places that I've just kind of been. But she also says I'm like a natural storyteller. It's just kind of the way I communicate with people and the way I relate to people is just to make you see what I'm trying to say, and I think I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah, that's probably a very great leadership trait as well, to be able to show people like this is the story, this is what I mean. Communication is top notch. So. If
I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, I would probably be back in one of my older jobs while it was a side job. It was never my full-time job, regrettably, but I was an improv comedian for 6 years when I lived over in the Panhandle. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was probably it was the most fun job I've ever had. I wish I could have paid the bills with it, but I always joke that my mom always told me to think before I talk, and then I got paid not to. So, I throw that out the window. But once you've done that, once you've stood up in front of a bunch of drunk airmen in a dive bar in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and made them all laugh, everything else is gravy.
So, okay, in our film, something we capture is like sort of a psychology arc of more ego, arrogance, like watch this, I'm gonna beat you, almost, to more of a community-driven, team-oriented space. Did you ever witness that in yourself? And tell us about that as within the context of like business ownership and all of that.
I was never overly competitive. I always said that the food truck industry especially was the only industry where collaboration was more important than competition. Because if I'm set up by myself, somebody might want a grilled cheese sandwich, they might want a shepherd's pie wrap, they might not. They might just keep walking. But if I'm set up, like we used to have the food truck court downtown where we could set like 5 trucks up at once. But if I'm set up down there with the pizza guy and, Julio's food on the move, the Puerto Rican food and Cuban sandwiches, and, like a bunch of different people, and they might not want a grilled cheese from me, but, they might want something from somebody else, and that might lead them to wander by me. So I've always, really focused on collaboration and the community aspect of it. I had the ego part when I started culinary school a little bit, but not a whole lot, because, the whole sense of anything you can do, I can do better was kind of broken in me when I went through basic training in the early 90s. That's like the first thing they break of you in the Army is like, no, you're all one, you all do it together. You fail together, you succeed together. And that stuck with me. I did compete. I used to compete. But I found it to be too exhausting for not any good purpose. I can make this really pretty food that this old German guy wants to look at and then critique until the cows come home, or I can go out and cook food that people want to eat and be happy about. So, I think for me, again, with the 11 lives that I've lived, it's life's too short to be that Gordon Ramsay kind of guy, that he portrays on TV, that angry, now you're screwing up my service, I will put you in your place, but we'll talk about it afterwards, and they'll be, hey, this is what was going wrong. This is why I corrected you. Don't ask me why in the middle of service. Just say yes, chef, and do it. But afterwards, I will break it down for you Barney style. Like, I will give it to you in little pieces and feed it to you so that you don't do that again. And that's what I do every day now with REFire is, I have people coming in the kitchen. Some have cooked, some haven't. Some, their only cooking experiences when they were incarcerated. But, I can break it down for them and say, okay, when you did this, that's when the wheels came off. So how can we back that up and not have that happen when you go into the big kitchen? Because that's where I want you to get a job and be successful. Let's learn that here. So yeah, there's only space for one ego in the kitchen, and that's the person who's in charge. And if you can't work within that, and know how to follow, you'll never really know how to lead. And I don't want to work for that kind of ego that's like yelling at you all the time, you know. I've not seen the other 2 seasons, but I have seen the first season of The Bear, and it is probably the most accurate depiction of what it's like in this life that I've ever seen on film. You know, when he's like having those flashbacks of being told that he's a piece of crap, and like, this crap, and all you can say is, yes, chef. But that's not how he led his kitchen. You know, he was like, I'm going to teach you to say yes, chef. I'm going to teach you to say herd. But that's not how he led. And I think that's more important, is to lead people in a way that you want to be led, and to lead people in a way that shows empathy and respect for them as a human being. So I hope that answered something.
No, that was great. I'm just going to keep firing here. How do you think about success? Our film is called The Winning Recipe, and that's a sort of double entendre for what you think it is. So it's like, how do we understand success in a kitchen in this industry?
For me, success is being able to create something that people want to come back to. With the truck, it was, how can I make this food that just makes you feel warm and safe and cozy and at home? With REFire, it's, how can I empower people to make positive choices and decisions that will affect the trajectory of their path. For me, success is, how good of a human being have I been every single day? And whether my actions as a human that day were feeding people or teaching people or just existing in the world. How can I lay my head down at night and know that I did the absolute best that I could, even when the day is complete crap, even when everything comes off even when it's a horrible day and the wheels come off and service didn't go right or whatever didn't happen right. What did I do to make sure that my team was okay, and what did I do to make sure that I'm okay? And I think that's more important than having a bunch of money in the bank. You know, making sure the bills are paid obviously is important, but I didn't get into this to get rich, because that's not happening. You know, I got into this because it's what I love to do.
Awesome. So, for the aspiring chef owner that's thinking about quitting, say they work in a kitchen for 2 years and they're like, fuck, like this is so hard. What do you say to them to motivate them? What are the parts of the job that keep people going?
That's the first thing I ask them. Why are you here? What is it that you think? Where's your expectation versus the reality? Where's the disconnect? Because if somebody is like, oh, it's so hard, you know, working this restaurant and, you know, the chef's yelling at me all the time. I'm never doing anything right and I never get any praise for anything. Well, maybe you're just not in the right kitchen. Maybe that's not the right kitchen for you. What is it that makes you want to go into the kitchen every day? And you know, for some people, it's like they want to do that really fancy, like the swoop of sauce and the stacked, deconstructed, you know, whatever. For some people, like me, it's like when I think of why I'm here, I think of the perfect diner plate of meatloaf and mashed potatoes and green peas, like that, like the perfectly portioned, steaming hot, delicious comfort food. Like that's what keeps me going, is I know that there are people who need to eat, and I know I like to cook. And if you're not in it for that, then why are you here? Because all the other stuff is just all the other stuff. And yeah, nobody likes to do all the other stuff. It's called adulting. Welcome to the club. We have hats. It sucks, but you have to do it.
the we have hats. I'm sorry, that was like perfect.
Chris and I think like video editors, so if you say something that's like fire like that, we're just like, zoop.
You'll see us like pause because we don't want to interrupt gold of just
All good.
Yeah.
One of my really good friends in my I have a group of mostly dads that I hang out with. They're all younger than me, but we play board games, and one of them does video editing. And so sometimes when we're like having a really raucous conversation, like things are like really flowing at the table, I'll just see him just like sit back and be like, because I can see that part in his brain, like that little hamster is just running.
I captured this
Man.
right now and stitched it this way.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
This has been such a great conversation. Not saying that because we should end it, or just acknowledging.
yeah, I was gonna say the
Awesome.
same thing. It's been very insightful because there's from hearing you and speaking with others and trying to get more insight into this, and also being so intertwined with the story with Leon and Keith and all that. The different personalities and how there's so many different approaches and different things. There seems to be the one commonality of you got to be doing it for something beyond yourself. You have to
Yeah.
be doing it for something greater. So
Yeah.
it's nice to find something that you can follow as a North Star because there's so
And
much to pull from and go with.
I mean, I look at if I had written down where I thought my life was going to go when I was in culinary school, I would have sold myself short. I did I think I would be 51 years old running a training program out of a homeless shelter for families? Absolutely not. Was that on my checklist or bingo card of things to do? Absolutely not. But I get to do it, and I get to feed people, and I get to interact with my guests, and I get to do the part that I really like, and I get to do the crap that I don't like to do. But I also get to teach people about cooking and how to do it safely and how to do it in a way that will get them employment and get them to a place where they could change things, because that's how it happened for me. Very few people end up in the kitchen because they sang too loud in the choir. It's the most motley crew of people I think I've ever met in my life. One of the guys who worked on my truck used to joke, said, "It's not a real kitchen unless somebody with a felony conviction's on the grill," and it's not far from the truth. But to get to do it every single day and get a paycheck and get to make food that people enjoy eating is, I mean, if that's not a win, I don't know what is.
Great. Yeah, it's gonna be hilarious going back and reviewing this conversation, because we're gonna try our best to identify the best 3 little moments, and there's gonna be like 17.
Gonna be so many.
Yeah.
And yeah, Rebecca, just further insight into how we're approaching this, and it could be kind of redundant, but we're trying to educate. We're trying to make sure that we have something that's of value with this doc. Now, we definitely want it to be entertaining, but ultimately, the value comes from if somebody who's younger watches this and invests time into it. Not only do they have an entertaining experience, but hopefully the target audience actually pulls some really valuable bites and nuggets just to help guide them through either what they're pursuing, or maybe it veers them somewhere else. But either way, it has a tangible impact. And what you getting on this call with us, which very grateful for, is helping that as well, because we're just trying to pretty much provide more insight and education to an otherwise, it seems like it's not as talked about as, say, culinary professional or like line cook or working for like a Michelin star restaurant, everybody glorifies that.
Mm-hmm.
They see restaurants and they don't think about, well, what's really going on there infrastructurally and business wise, like to run
Yeah.
to allow for those beautiful dishes in the kitchen. Where'd you get the stainless steel appliances, and where'd you get all the, what's the payroll looking like that kind of stuff is
Mm-hmm.
not as pretty. So
No.
yeah.
No. That's stacks of. As soon as we hang up, I got stacks of food orders to do and got receipts to put in, and yeah, like all that stuff is not. That's not the fun part. You know, people want to think about the flames and the and the tweezers and the. Yeah, I get to do so little of that. It's more of keeping the trains moving. You know, it's more of a. I'm not the main engineer like on the train anymore. I'm more of like. It's more like air traffic control. You know, like I'm telling where all the planes are going. Like you're going to do this and you're going to do that, and you know we have 14 caterings in the next 7 days, and this is how it's going to get pulled off, and like, yeah, just keeping everything on time.
And that's just invaluable for someone who's thinking about it and wanting to invest their time and life into it. It's like,
Yeah.
how much do you love it? Because if you don't love it, it's not going to last.
No, you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
There was a guy that I knew that opened up a truck here in town in 2000. I think it was in 2012. He only lasted 9 months, and it was a grilled cheese truck, and he had 19 different kinds of cheese on his truck, and I was like, bruh, that's too many. And he's like, I know what I'm doing. And, you know, he put on a chef's coat and wanted everybody to call him chef. And I wouldn't, that was, you have to earn that title. And he closed in 9 months, and he wouldn't take any advice. He wouldn't take anything. He never went to culinary school. He never worked in a restaurant. He just made a really good sandwich. And his friends were like, oh, you should open a food truck. And he's like, I'm going to open a food truck. And he did. And it was disastrous because he was 6 figures in debt before he even opened the door. And you're not going to recoup that. You're not going to make that back on a truck. You're not going to make that back on a brick and mortar. You know, the first 2.5 years, we didn't turn a profit. It is what it is. You have to be willing to grind that out. And if you don't love it, and if you're not in it because you love it, it'll break you. And you'll be closed in 9 months like that guy was, and selling off all your expensive equipment, you know, trying to pay the bills. And that's sad. I don't like that. You know?
It feels like the 19 cheeses is like an analogy for like deciding what to focus on and like saying no to shit.
Mm-hmm.
How do you decide on that? And like, as an additional part to the question, what is like too niche?
19 cheeses.
Yeah.
I went with, like, when I named the truck and everything, I went with it as like street chefs. I didn't want to like pigeonhole myself into, oh, we're the grilled cheese truck, or we're the, you know, the funky burrito truck. I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into that. So that's why we went with such a broad name. Because then I was like, well, we can just change up whenever we want to. But we used to park at Food Truck Thursday next to a guy who did this like Vietnamese fusion with a southern twist, and he would sell out all the time. So I don't think there's, but he only ever offered 3 things. Like whenever he opened it, it was like 3 things and dessert, and that was it. But like he had this like lemongrass shrimp skewer that was just, man, I haven't had that thing in 14 years, and I'm still thinking about it. So I think if you're going to be niche like that, you know, if you're going to just do small well. And then once you've done small well, you can do not so small. You know, we started with 4 core menu items and ended with 14, but really it was only like I said, it was only 5 because you have to cross utilize. And you'll know what people want and what people don't want. We did one food truck Thursday. We were like, oh, we're going to do breakfast for dinner. We're going to change the whole menu. We're just going to do breakfast for dinner because everybody loves breakfast for dinner. Oh my God, it was disaster. They were like, where's the grilled cheese? Where's the Chelsea? Where's the... No, we have pancakes tonight. No thanks. So we never, ever, ever, ever did that again. You figure it out. You know, you have a gut feeling about it, you know, and you can try it and lose your shirt a little bit, but you have to be willing to fail to succeed. Anything in life, you have to be willing to fail to succeed. I am a subject matter expert in how to fail. I know exactly how to do that. And what's the worst thing that can happen? Is it going to sink my entire business? Okay, I won't do that. But if it's just going to be, I'm going to lose sales for one night if I try this, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. You have to be willing to fail to find what's going to work. Because not everything you think is going to work is going to work. You know, it might look really good on paper, but then you put it into theory and it's like, no. Communism looks good on paper, but yeah, that's not going to happen. So
Yeah, until you have hundreds of thousands of people starving.
exactly.
Last question I have is there anyone that's in your close network or that you think represents Tallahassee's community well? Chef owner, anybody that you would be willing to connect us with that you think could do a call like this in an interesting way?
I really like Chef Joe. He owns Lucilla. And I've had a couple of my REFire graduates work with him, and I love that's the place where when my wife and I want a fancy meal, that's where we go. But he does his food very well, and it's a small place, it's a small restaurant, small menu, and it's really, really good. But yeah, it's, I would say Chef Joe would probably be one, because you guys already talked to Keith. You know how Keith runs Cool Beans, and that's amazing. And then I would say David, but he closed Cypress and Vertigo and everything. So there's also I don't know if he's the owner though, Ryan Garreau, who at the Huntsman. But I'm not sure if he's just the chef or if he's a chef owner. But definitely Chef Joe at Lucilla. Yeah, cool. He's an awesome guy.
Cool. And then
Yeah.
Is there anything, while we're still rolling here, is there anything you would want to say additionally that would be useful for you to have recorded that might not have anything to do with what we've been talking about?
You don't do that to somebody who's done improv comedy, because I'm like,
Just spit fire right now.
rein it in, kid.
Oh no.
It's if you could, you've done a job well done if you can look at what you've done and be happy. But if you can look at the people you've done it with and they're happy too, that I think is more important. You know, my guys still talk. Trey still talks to me. There's pictures of Brandon, my old manager, and there's a big sign behind my TV in the back that they gave me for my birthday. And the relationships that you build are more important than the plates that you make, and it's a human experience. Food is, everybody has to eat. You might as well do it well and do it with people you like doing it with. If you're getting yelled at all the time in the kitchen, then you're in the wrong kitchen. If you're not doing it right all the time, maybe you should go be an accountant. Go do something else. I say all the time, how many grilled cheese sandwiches is this going to cost me? Because I'm a real good cooker. But yeah, I'm not an HVAC technician. I'm not an accountant. I'm not any of those other things. But I'll cook you a good grilled cheese sandwich, and you can go do your thing, and I'll do my thing. And we'll all be happy. That's it. That's all I got.
Beautiful.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
No worries.
It's been really fun to get to know you.
Got my little yes chef.
Yes, chef.
There's only 3 answers in the kitchen: yes chef, no chef, and heard. That's it.
Heard.
Heard. Heard is the word.
I've also found myself saying this in between, like going to my kitchen and like bedroom. I'll say corner a lot.
Mhm.
I'll for some reason that's the chance to like exercise any type of chef duty, and I'm like corner. But it's that's the communication is crazy. I've only worked in a kitchen like once, and man, it's rough. Not rough, but it's like
If
you got to be on your game.
If it's not for you, it's not for you.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. My wife and I met at work. She was front of the house. She is not back of the house, and we found out real quick she couldn't work on the truck because we like being married more than I needed her to work. Because she kept sending me mods. It was me and her. We're working a brunch shift, and I was like, "Here's the menu. It's 4 things." Da da da. And she'd slide a ticket down, and it would be like this, but this, not this, with this. And I'm like, "Could you stop sending mods? There's 4 things on the menu. They don't want that. Pick something else. Stop being a jerk. Stop being stupid." That was the last time we worked together.
But you're still married.
Yeah, 15 years. 15 years, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's a feat.
Yeah, she hasn't killed me yet.
That's funny. Well, awesome.
Cool.
Rebecca, thank you.
No worries, guys.
Thank you so much.
This was fun.
It's been super fun for us too. The whole process. We're still learning and on it. So
Awesome.
thank you for making the time.
Yeah, no worries. Enjoy the hours worth of footage that you have to cut through now.
It'll only be a little grain on like. I'm just kidding. No, it's still more. More is more.
More is more, exactly.
Yeah.
I know what none is, and I know what some is, but I don't know what enough is. So.
Yeah.
Check your email too. We're going to be sending you an invite for an event later this month.
Awesome.
That we would love to see you at.
If I can be there, I'll be there.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Later. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.